Welcome back to the Difference Engine podcast. I'm your host, Caleb Oakes. Gonna bring up some ancient history today, or at least it feels like it. What I don't hear a lot of anymore is people talking about instincts in business ownership. And I don't know if it's the rise of technology. And this is me just thinking, this is drawing out of like a deep spot. I usually have some idea of a script for a podcast or like a theme to run off of, or at minimum like 2 bullet points. But it just struck me today as I was in a room of mostly entrepreneurs. It's weird. In our community, we like to talk a lot about the grit and the hustle. We'll talk about staying up late, working weekends. I don't necessarily agree. I don't know. My hot take is probably that people consider that a badge of honor. I got into business myself for freedom, for personal freedom. And I think if there's this like Stockholm syndrome of I put in the time or I worked the hours, then you sort of start, if you fall in love with the grind, then you fall in love with the grind. I don't really feel like that's what business is for. I think there are seasons of it maybe, but for a person to tell me that they grind tells me that they also don't understand leverage very well, or that they don't use it. They choose not to use it, which doesn't make sense to me. But what I don't hear as much anymore is the instinct of business ownership, because it's one of the things that's intrinsic. It's sort of adjacent to the grit of being able to put in the time, 9 to 5 mentality of punching in, of an employee or a team member who wants to just be able to leave at the end of the day and not think about it. That gap of not having to think about it anymore is also the gap in pay. The risk that an employee, like an entrepreneur, is outsourcing that work to the employee is outsourcing the risk to the entrepreneur. They're saying, yeah, you can go up front, lead the charge, be in danger. I don't have to think about it. If we go under, then I'll find out later with a layoff. I don't know if it's like the rise of AI or technology or just prolific, just insane amounts of information. Like, I'm a business coach, and most coaching out there, like a lot of people, I don't hear this as much, but I know colleagues of mine do. I hear it kind of overtly in conversation. It's like, I'll chat GPT it, or I'll Google it, or I'll YouTube University this stuff. That is not the same as coaching. Two of the biggest things coaching does is it applies pressure to the amount that it's needed and no more. Very much like a personal trainer will restrict diet just to the point of insanity and do workouts that are just hard enough that they feel like you're not going to make it, but they get the most result for it. So a business coach is like, we're going to go right up to the edge of this thing that's terrifying, and we're going to stay here until we get it, and then we're pushing past it. So it's like balancing the fear, the newness, the intensity is what a coach does. And the other thing that they do is they're like, hey, here's all these levers you can pull. You can pull hiring. You can pull your offer. You can get better sales. You can change your time inputs. You can go more tech leaning. You can go more person to person. You can change your sales tactics. And a business owner, not always does a person know which one of these to pull in what order. And if you pull them in the wrong order, it will kill your business. That's the trip. If you pull them in the wrong order, it can kill your business. There's business owners that are like, man, I want unlimited lead flow. As a business coach, you're like, dude, wave your magic wand. What do you want? What's the best thing I could do? Oh, I want 1,000 new leads. Okay. And then when you can't service all those leads, or when they take all your inventory, and now you have 50 one-star reviews next week because you couldn't service them with your internal infrastructure, you killed yourself with success. Besides that, if you don't, it's the same as saying like, who's your client? Who's your best client? Well, everybody. It's not everybody. That's not marketing. That's not niche. Anyway, the point I'm making is that because of how prolific information is now, there seems to be a lot less reliance on instinct for business owners. And with that instinct that's kind of adjacent to the grit that it takes, there is such a thing as like using your intuition for a decision not panning out. I just talked to a guy yesterday who runs a handyman business, and we both were agreeing that categorically humans are terrible at projecting data from nothing but their own feelings and cognition. Not good at it. It's the same thing as like if you were just to like walk in an area that you're unfamiliar with and walk indefinitely, and at the end of your walk, someone asks, how far did you go? And you're going to try to guess if it was 2.5 miles or 5 miles. And if you walk frequently, you can kind of guess, maybe accurately. But if it's a new area and you don't walk very often, you're probably going to, the chances of you nailing it exactly the distance you walked is not high. So in all these things that we have as entrepreneurs and all the gung-ho, like, I made a decision, I'm not an employee anymore, all that good stuff, there's something inherent in entrepreneurs that causes them to see the same situation as most other people and decide something different. And that's what I want to say right there. Entrepreneurs decide differently. And that's part of the instinct. But not just decide differently. They have a different framework for making the decisions in the first place. Typically what I find in myself and in others, this is how you can, I think at a young age, identify if a person's an entrepreneur at heart or could be, is a situation they run up against and they make this decision of, that won't happen again. I will not allow that again. I won't accept that again. Sometimes it's traumatic. Sometimes it's social. Sometimes it's quiet and personal. But something happens to flip a switch in them. And I think more than grit, see, the grit's a byproduct of that. The grit of a business owner to work Saturdays and Sundays, the grit of a business owner to stay late, to sit at their desk for 5 hours straight, is a byproduct of this instinct I'm talking about, which is so deeply ingrained in them. Grit is and can be, but it's something that we witness. The hustle is something we witness because it's something that we're not witnessing in that person, which is a decision they made that when other people were like, I guess that's the way it is, or that sucks, or these are the cards I was dealt, it's even beyond being an entrepreneur. It's something more personal to the human experience of, rather than going through that situation again, I'm going to transform it. I will be the alchemist of my reality. I'll be the alchemist of my future. That, in my opinion, supersedes plain entrepreneurship. That is one of the most core human experiences on earth. The choice of, I'll let it happen to me, or I don't need to do anything about it, versus this is in my control and in my hands. I will do something about it. I don't see a lot of that instinct as much anymore. And I wonder if it's because more and more people are complacent and just don't care how it turns out. If you have questions or comments or want to start a conversation with me, The Difference Engine is my handle on all platforms. Have a great week.